In January 2026, at 2 o'clock in the morning Caracas time, U.S. Delta Force troops launched a swift, thunderous operation and made their way into the capital of Venezuela, entering the residence of Nicolás Maduro, arresting him, and then transferring him to the United States for legal proceedings. Maduro's crime, according to the authorities, was drug-related terrorism, an accusation that marked him as a high-profile target and made this operation a matter of national significance. This achievement, praised by Donald Trump as a national honor, highlighted the reach and determination of U.S. forces in handling international threats, demonstrating both speed and precision in a high-stakes mission. However, history has a way of repeating itself, and this was not the first time that a similar event had taken place. Years earlier, a comparable operation occurred in a small but strategically vital country, Panama, which, despite its size, held immense geopolitical importance due to its location. During what became known as Operation Just Cause, the United States undertook decisive actions in this tiny nation, showing once again the strategic reach of American military planning. So stay with me as we explore these events in detail. And before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video, as your support is essential for helping the channel grow and continue producing this content. Panama is a country located at one of the most strategic points on the planet, home to the Panama Canal, a man-made waterway that connects the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean, and is considered one of the most important transit canals in the world in terms of global trade and shipping. This canal dramatically reduces maritime travel distances, shortening the shipping route from the west coast of the United States to the east coast from nearly 25,000 kilometers to just about 9,500 kilometers, a transformation that reshaped global commerce and made Panama a key hub of international transit. The canal itself was built by the United States, a fact that further deepened American influence and strategic interest in the region. But Panama's importance does not end there. The country also serves as the natural land bridge connecting South America to North America, placing it at the crossroads of two continents and turning it into a critical logistical gateway. Because of this unique geography, Panama became one of the main transit points for drug trafficking routes, facilitating the movement of narcotics from Latin America into North America, earning it a reputation as a transit paradise for drug cartels and illicit trade networks. At the height of the Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union, Moscow understood that a direct military confrontation with Washington was virtually impossible, and instead adopted a central, multi-layered strategy focused on expanding its influence through indirect means. Through this strategy, the Soviet Union began supporting left-wing groups and political parties across the world, investing heavily in ideological training, propaganda campaigns, covert operations, and underground networks designed to destabilize pro-American governments. The results of this project were undeniable, as leftist movements grew rapidly in strength and popularity across Latin America, producing figures such as Fidel Castro in Cuba, Daniel Ortega in Nicaragua, Salvador Allende in Chile, and Jacobo Arbenz in Guatemala. These outcomes were seen in Moscow as a remarkable success, proving that revolutions could be exported without firing a single shot against the United States. On the other side, however, the United States grew increasingly alarmed by what it perceived as a domino effect, fearing that communist revolutions, like the one in Cuba, could easily spread to neighboring countries such as Bolivia and beyond. In response, Washington began supporting right-wing parties and leaders across the region, actively helping them seize and maintain power, often regardless of their methods or moral standing. It did not matter whether these leaders were corrupt, involved with drug trafficking networks, human smuggling operations, or even openly racist. Only one criterion truly mattered: they had to be anti-communist. Manuel Antonio Noriega Moreno, a young Panamanian man with a harsh appearance who failed to gain admission to medical school, instead managed to secure a scholarship to a military academy in Lima, Peru, a turning point that would ultimately reshape the future of Panama itself. He traveled to Peru, completed his military education, and after graduating, returned to Panama, where he immediately joined the National Guard, quickly drawing attention due to both his aggressive demeanor and his undeniable talent. Recognized by senior commanders, he was selected for advanced training in infantry operations, counterintelligence, and psychological warfare, allowing him to rise rapidly through the ranks of the Guard while gaining access to increasingly sensitive information. As his influence grew, he obtained critical intelligence on communist movements operating throughout Panama and Latin America, information that soon attracted the interest of the CIA, with whom he established direct contact. A relationship of deep trust was formed. He provided intelligence, and in return, he received substantial financial rewards, strengthening his position both politically and economically. At the same time, within the Panamanian military, he grew closer to a powerful and charismatic figure, Colonel Omar Torrijos, a man with left-leaning ideas rooted in nationalism and a strong desire to eliminate foreign interference in Panama's affairs. With the support of young officers, Colonel Torrijos led a coup against Arnulfo Arias, seizing power and becoming the de facto leader of Panama, while the presidency itself was reduced to a ceremonial role behind which real authority operated. This moment marked a dramatic shift, and in the aftermath of the coup, the young officer was appointed head of Panama's military intelligence service, placing the most sensitive information about communist movements directly into his hands. He continued to sell this intelligence to the CIA on a regular basis, accumulating vast sums of money and expanding his personal power within the state. During this same period, he also established direct connections with powerful drug cartels, organizations with virtually limitless financial resources, offering them safe passage through Panama's airports and ports in exchange for enormous bribes. Panamanian banks soon became major money laundering centers for cartel profits, while funds from both the CIA and the drug trade steadily elevated Manuel Noriega's influence within the Panamanian government, eventually making him the most powerful figure in the country after Omar Torrijos. On July 31, 1981, a mysterious event changed everything when the aircraft carrying Omar Torrijos crashed under suspicious circumstances, creating a sudden and dangerous power vacuum in Panama. Using the complex network he had built within the military, Manuel Noriega carried out a coup and emerged as the de facto leader of Panama, a man who controlled presidents like puppets while holding absolute authority behind the scenes. His cooperation with the CIA and the drug cartels grew stronger than ever. His wealth increased day by day, and his grip on power tightened, until that very power transformed him into a ruthless dictator who ruled through fear, repression, and violence against his own people. But then, something happened that changed the game entirely. By 1989, the Soviet Union was facing multiple internal crises, and its support for left-wing movements across Latin America had significantly declined, causing many communist groups in the region to collapse, while others chose to survive by entering negotiations with the United States. As a result, the fear of communist expansion in Latin America was no longer Washington's primary concern, but a new and far more immediate threat had taken its place: cocaine, a drug that had turned into a full-scale national crisis inside the United States. Addiction rates were rising rapidly, and between 1985 and 1988, deaths related to cocaine use had tripled, alarming the American public and placing enormous pressure on policymakers. At the same time, journalists increasingly exposed Manuel Noriega's deep connections to powerful drug cartels, publishing reports that linked him directly to cocaine trafficking networks operating between Latin America and the United States. Public outrage reached a breaking point, forcing Washington to intensify its pressure on Noriega. And in 1988, he was formally indicted by a U.S. court on drug trafficking charges. Realizing that his situation had become extremely dangerous, Noriega shifted toward aggressive nationalist and anti-American rhetoric, attempting to use the Panama Canal as political leverage against the United States. while ruling the country with growing brutality and suppressing any form of dissent. After declaring a state of war, Noriega delivered a shocking public speech, holding a machete in his hand, and declared, "We, the people of Panama, will sit along the canal and watch the bodies of our enemies float by." Tensions escalated day by day until, in late 1989, Panama officially entered a wartime state, and during this period, an American citizen was shot and killed by Panamanian forces on Panamanian soil, igniting anger and a desire for revenge within U.S. public opinion. This moment provided President George H.W. Bush with the political justification needed to launch a military intervention in Panama. On December 20, 1989, the United States began Operation Just Cause, officially aimed at protecting American citizens living in Panama and capturing Manuel Noriega. The operation opened with simultaneous airstrikes by U.S. warplanes on strategic targets across Panama, followed by the deployment of Delta Force units tasked specifically with locating and arresting Noriega. Despite the massive assault, Noriega managed to escape and, on December 24th, sought refuge inside the Vatican embassy, claiming political asylum, while U.S. forces surrounded the compound. Concerned that the embassy could become the center of a prolonged international crisis, the Vatican withdrew Noriega's asylum, and realizing that there was no longer any path to escape, he finally surrendered. On January 3rd, Manuel Noriega walked out of the Vatican embassy and turned himself over to American forces. He was first imprisoned in the United States, later transferred to France, at the request of the French government to face money laundering charges, and eventually extradited to Panama, where he remained behind bars until the end of his life. In 2017, Manuel Noriega died in prison from a brain tumor, closing the final chapter of one of the most controversial figures in Latin American history. Thank you for staying with me until the end. Your likes and comments play a vital role in helping this channel grow. Don't forget to subscribe. And until the next video, goodbye.